Commander Jack Stone stared at the message on his screen. His hands shook as he read it again. The words were simple, but they meant death for everyone on Earth. Humans of Earth, you have refused our offer. You will surrender in 7 days or face total destruction. The Grand Fleet is coming. Prepare to die. The message came from the Valdorian Empire, rulers of half the galaxy. Jack walked to the window of his space station. Far below, Earth looked peaceful. Blue oceans and white clouds covered the planet where 8 billion people lived their normal lives. Most of them had no idea that death was racing toward them through space. Captain Beth Williams ran into the command center. Her face was pale with fear. "Jack, you need to see this," she said, pointing at her scanner. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big." "Really big?" Jack looked at the display screen. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Thousands of red dots moved through space toward Earth. Each dot was a warship from the Valdorian Empire. The enemy fleet was so large that the computer couldn't count them all. "How many?" Jack asked. "At least 3,000 ships," Beth replied. "Maybe more. Our entire navy has only 400 ships." Jack closed his eyes. The Valdorians had never lost a war. In 1,000 years, they had conquered 200 worlds. Every species that fought them was now dead or enslaved. On Earth, President Henry Cole stood before the United Earth Assembly. The room was filled with leaders from every nation. They all knew what was coming. "My fellow humans," President Cole began, "we face our darkest hour. The Valdorian Empire has sent their Grand Fleet to destroy us. They want us to surrender without a fight." An old man from Europe stood up. "How can we fight them? Their smallest ship is stronger than our biggest battleship." President Cole looked around the room. "We fight because we are human. We fight because this is our home. We fight because surrender means death anyway." Dr. Nathan Brooks sat in his secret laboratory deep underground. He had been working on weapons that no civilized species would ever build. Weapons that broke the rules of war. Weapons that might give humanity a chance. His assistant, Dr. Karen Price, ran tests on their latest creation. It was a bomb that could turn a star into a weapon. It was terrible and beautiful at the same time. "The Aurora project is ready," Karen said. "But Nathan, if we use these weapons, we'll be no better than the monsters coming to kill us." Nathan looked at her with sad eyes. "Karen, when someone comes to murder your family, you don't worry about being polite. You do whatever it takes to stop them." Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the battleship Earth's Pride. Around her, the entire human fleet was getting ready for war. Every ship they had was moving into position. Cargo ships, mining vessels, research stations, everything with an engine was being armed for battle. General Peter Clark came up beside her. "Lisa, we both know this is hopeless. 3,000 enemy ships against our 400. The math doesn't work." Lisa smiled grimly. "Peter, humans have never been good at math when it comes to giving up. We're going to show these aliens what happens when you threaten our home." Captain Roy Davis climbed into his scout ship. His mission was simple but deadly. He had to fly deep into enemy territory and learn everything he could about the Valdorian fleet. The chances of coming back alive were almost zero. Roy's wife and children stood by his ship. They knew he might never see them again. His little daughter gave him a drawing she had made. It showed their family standing together under a blue sky. "Bring this back to me, Daddy," she said. Roy hugged her tight. "I'll come home, sweetheart. I promise." The Valdorian fleet moved through space like a wall of death. Their ships were huge and red, covered in weapons that could crack planets in half. At their head was the flagship destroyer of worlds, commanded by Fleet Commander Zarthek. Zarthek had conquered 40 worlds in his long career. He had seen species beg for mercy. He had watched planets burn. But he had never faced humans before. His second-in-command approached him. "Commander, why don't we just destroy their planet from long range?" "Why give them 7 days to prepare?" Zarthek smiled coldly. "Because fear is our greatest weapon. Let them think about their coming death. Let them imagine their children screaming as their world burns. Terror makes victory sweeter." But Zarthek didn't know humans very well. He thought they would spend 7 days in fear. Instead, they spent 7 days getting angry. Captain Roy Davis reached the edge of the enemy fleet and activated his ship's recording systems. What he saw shocked him. The Valdorian ships weren't just warships. They were mobile factories. They built weapons while they traveled. They were preparing to wipe out every trace of human life. Roy sent his final message back to Earth. "They're not just coming to conquer us. They're coming to erase us completely. Don't let our children die for nothing. Make these monsters pay for every human life they take. The message reached Earth just as the 7-day deadline ended. The Valdorian fleet had arrived at the edge of the solar system. Their red ships filled the space between the stars like drops of blood. On Earth, air raid sirens began to wail. Families ran to underground shelters. Children cried for their parents. Old people remembered other wars and shook their heads sadly. But in the military command centers, something different was happening. Human officers looked at their screens with hard eyes. They had spent 7 days preparing for this moment. Dr. Brooks activated his communication system and spoke to every ship in the human fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. Today we prove that some things are worth dying for. Admiral Grant gave the order that would change everything. All ships, battle stations. We're going to teach these aliens that Earth is not for sale. The first human ships began moving toward the enemy fleet. They were outnumbered 7-1. Their weapons were weaker. Their armor was thinner. By every rule of war, they should have surrendered. Instead, they accelerated toward the enemy at full speed. Behind them, Earth waited in darkness. Ahead of them, the Valdorian fleet prepared to deliver death. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. The first shots of the war came near Mars. Captain Julia Martinez commanded the destroyer Iron Will when she spotted the Valdorian advance guard. 5 enemy cruisers, each one bigger than her entire ship. Julia looked at her crew. 20 young men and women who had joined the Navy to explore space, not to die in battle. Now they faced weapons that could turn their ship into dust in seconds. "Captain, what are your orders?" asked her weapons officer. Julia smiled grimly. "We're going to show these aliens how humans say hello." The Iron Will charged straight at the enemy ships. The Valdorians opened fire with energy beams that lit up space like lightning. Julia's ship shook as the weapons hit her shields. "Shields at 50%, called out her engineer. "Good," Julia replied. "That means we're getting close enough." What happened next shocked the Valdorian captain. Instead of turning away or trying to fight from long range, the human ship kept coming. It flew straight into the middle of the enemy formation. At the last second, Julia activated her secret weapon. Dr. Brooks had installed a new type of bomb in her ship, an antimatter warhead that would destroy everything within 50 miles. "Tell my family I love them," Julia said to her communications officer. Then she pressed the button. The explosion turned the Iron Will and 2 Valdorian cruisers into expanding balls of light. The other enemy ships were badly damaged. They had never seen an enemy destroy their own ship just to hurt them. Commander Rick Turner watched the battle from his mining ship. He commanded a group of vessels that were never meant for war. Cargo haulers, asteroid miners, research ships, civilian vessels with civilian crews. But Rick's ships carried a secret. Dr. Brooks had given them the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. Weapons hidden inside cargo containers and mining equipment. "All ships, this is Turner," Rick said on the radio. "Time to show these bastards what human miners can do." Rick's fleet charged toward a group of Valdorian battleships. The enemy laughed at the approaching cargo vessels. What could a bunch of miners do against warships? They found out when Rick's ships opened their cargo bays. Instead of rocks or supplies, the bays were filled with nuclear missiles. Hundreds of them, all aimed at the enemy fleet. The missiles flew through space like a swarm of angry bees. The Valdorians tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions lit up the darkness as the nuclear warheads found their targets. 3 Valdorian battleships died in the first minute. Their proud armor meant nothing against weapons that turned matter into energy. But Rick wasn't finished. He ordered his ships to ram the surviving enemy vessels. His miners had been preparing for this moment for months. Every ship was rigged to explode when it hit an enemy hull. The Valdorian fleet commander Zarthek watched the battle reports with growing concern. His advance guard was being destroyed by ships that shouldn't have been able to hurt them. "These humans fought like madmen, sir," said his tactical officer. "The humans are using suicide attacks. They're destroying their own ships to damage ours." Zarthek had conquered 40 worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. Most species surrendered when they saw his fleet. Others fought bravely but logically. These humans were doing something different. They were fighting like they wanted to die. On Earth, Dr. Brooks was in his underground laboratory, watching the battle through military satellites. Every human ship that died took enemy vessels with them. The math was simple. If humans were willing to trade one ship for one alien ship, they might have a chance. Dr. Karen Price ran into the room with exciting news. "Nathan, Project Hellfire is ready. We can activate the hidden weapons." Nathan smiled for the first time in days. For months, human ships had been secretly placing weapons throughout the solar system, on asteroids, inside space stations, even on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Now it was time to use them. "Do it," Nathan ordered. All across the solar system, hidden weapons came online. Railguns that could fire projectiles at 10% of light speed. Laser arrays that could focus the power of a star. Gravity bombs that could crush enemy ships like tin cans. The Valdorians suddenly found themselves under attack from every direction. Asteroids that they had ignored were firing massive guns at them. Space stations they had dismissed were launching missiles. Even chunks of ice from Saturn's rings were exploding into shrapnel clouds. Captain Sue Johnson commanded humanity's strangest weapon, ships with no crew aboard. The Ghost Fleet was controlled by artificial intelligence computers that had been programmed with one simple order: destroy the enemy. Sue watched from a safe distance as her robot ships attacked the Valdorian fleet. The enemy couldn't understand what they were fighting. These ships had no life signs, no crew to kill, no morale to break. They just kept coming, no matter how much damage they took. One of Sue's robot ships rammed a Valdorian dreadnought at full speed. The explosion was so bright that people on Earth could see it without telescopes. General Peter Clark coordinated the battle from Earth's command center. He had spent his whole life studying war, but he had never planned a battle like this one. Every strategy he had learned was based on keeping your own forces alive. This battle was different. This battle was about making the enemy pay the highest price possible. "Sir, we've lost 60 ships in the first hour," reported his aide. "How many enemy ships have we killed?" Peter asked. 47 confirmed, another 20 badly damaged. Peter nodded grimly. "We're winning." His aide looked confused. "Sir, we've lost more ships than they have." "Son," Peter explained, "they came here with 3,000 ships to kill 8 billion people. If we make them pay one ship for every ship we lose, they'll run out of ships before we run out of courage." In space, the battle raged on. Captain Dan Cooper led a boarding party onto a damaged Valdorian cruiser. His Marines fought the alien crew in hand-to-hand combat through the ship's corridors. The Valdorians were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought enemies who refused to retreat. Dan's Marines advanced through rooms filled with poison gas, past electrical fields that could stop a man's heart, around gravity traps that could crush bones. When Dan's team reached the enemy bridge, they found something incredible. The Valdorian computers contained star maps showing the location of every enemy base in this part of the galaxy. "Command, this is Cooper," Dan radioed back to Earth. "We've got their navigation data. We know where they live." The information reached Dr. Brooks within minutes. Now humanity knew where the enemy came from. More importantly, they knew where the enemy's families lived. Fleet Commander Zarthek received reports that made his blood run cold. The humans had captured one of his ships. They had his military codes. They knew the location of Valdorian worlds. For the first time in his long career, Zarthek felt afraid. These humans weren't just defending their planet. They were learning how to attack his. As the second day of battle began, both sides had learned something important. The Valdorians had learned that humans would die before they would surrender. The humans had learned that aliens could bleed. The war was far from over, but already the galaxy was changing. Word was spreading to other worlds that the mighty Valdorian Empire could be hurt, that their ships could burn, that their crews could die, and in the depths of space more human ships were coming, ships that had been hiding in the darkness for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. Ships carrying weapons that would make the first day's battle look like a gentle disagreement. The Valdorians had come to erase humanity from existence. Instead, they had awakened something that would haunt their nightmares for generations to come. Dr. Karen Price stood in the control room deep beneath Earth's surface. Around her, screens showed the positions of weapons that had been hidden throughout the solar system for months. It was time to reveal humanity's greatest secret. "Nathan, are you sure about this?" she asked Dr. Brooks. Nathan looked at the battle reports. Human ships were dying, but they were taking enemy vessels with them. The plan was working, but it needed help. "Do it, Karen. Activate Pandora." Karen pressed a series of buttons. All across the solar system, asteroids that looked normal suddenly opened up like flowers. Inside each one was a weapon that could destroy a city. The Valdorians had been ignoring the asteroids, thinking they were just space rocks. Now those rocks were firing weapons that moved at almost the speed of light. Metal projectiles the size of telephone poles slammed into enemy ships at impossible speeds. A Valdorian battleship that had seemed unstoppable suddenly split in half when one of the projectiles hit it. The enemy crew had only seconds to scream before their ship exploded. Captain Dan Cooper was leading his team through another captured Valdorian ship when the Pandora weapon started firing. Through the enemy ship's windows he could see space lighting up like the 4th of July. "Holy hell," said one of his Marines. "Where did all those weapons come from?" Dan smiled as he fought an alien warrior twice his size. "We've been busy, son." The alien swung a weapon that could cut through steel, but Dan was faster. He shot the creature with a gun that fired bullets designed to work in zero gravity. The alien fell, purple blood floating in the air. Dan's team reached the enemy ship's engine room and found something amazing. The Valdorians used a type of engine that humans had never seen before. It could move ships faster than anything in the human fleet. "Command, this is Cooper," Dan radioed. "We need Dr. Brooks down here. He's going to want to see this." Within hours, Dr. Brooks was studying the alien engine through video feeds from Dan's team. What he learned changed everything. "My God," Nathan whispered. "Karen, look at this. They're using quantum tunneling to fold space. If we can copy this technology..." Karen understood immediately. "We could build ships that are faster than anything the enemy has." "Better than that," Nathan replied. "We could build weapons that the enemy can't run away from." Admiral Lisa Grant was commanding the battle from her flagship when she received Nathan's message. The human fleet was holding its own, but barely. They needed an advantage. "Lisa, we're going to need 12 hours to study this alien technology." Nathan's voice crackled over the radio.
"Can you hold them off that long?"
Lisa looked at her tactical display. The enemy had lost many ships, but they still outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. "Nathan, I'll give you 12 hours if I have to ram my ship down their throats personally." Commander Tracy Wells was piloting one of humanity's newest fighters when she got her strangest order yet. Dr. Brooks wanted her to test a new type of weapon that could phase through enemy shields. "Tracy, this is experimental," Dr. Brooks warned her over the radio. "The weapon might work perfectly or it might blow up in your face." Tracy looked at the massive Valdorian dreadnought she was approaching. It was the size of a city and covered in weapons that could vaporize her fighter in an instant. "Doc, if this thing can hurt that monster, I'll test it." Tracy's fighter was equipped with Dr. Brooks's latest creation, a phasing device that could shift matter between dimensions. In theory, it would let her weapons pass through enemy shields like they weren't there. She dove toward the enemy dreadnought, dodging energy beams that lit up space around her. At the last second, she fired her new weapon, a nuclear torpedo that phased through the enemy's shields and exploded inside their hull. The dreadnought shuddered as explosions tore through its interior. Tracy's impossible weapon had worked. "Command, this is Wells," Tracy radioed excitedly. "The phasing torpedo works. I can hurt their big ships." Captain Bob Miller was commanding a cruiser when he received orders that seemed insane. Command wanted him to capture an entire enemy battleship intact with its crew alive. "Sir, that's impossible," his weapons officer protested. "Those ships have crews of thousands." Bob looked at his own crew of 200. The odds were crazy, but humans had been doing impossible things for 3 days now. "Load the sleep gas torpedoes," Bob ordered. "We're going fishing for aliens." Bob's ship approached a damaged Valdorian battleship that was trying to retreat. Instead of destroying it, he fired torpedoes filled with gas that would put the alien crew to sleep without killing them. The gas worked better than expected. Within minutes, the entire enemy crew was unconscious. Bob's Marines boarded the ship and found themselves in control of the most advanced warship in the Valdorian fleet. "Command, this is Miller," Bob radioed. "I've got a present for Dr. Brooks. One enemy battleship complete with crew and computers." Dr. Brooks was so excited he could barely speak. A complete enemy ship would give him access to all their technology. Weapons, engines, shields, everything. But the real surprise came when his team examined the alien computers. The Valdorians kept detailed records of all their military operations. Now humanity knew everything: where their fleets were located, what planets they controlled, even the names of their commanders. General Mike Stevens was coordinating with human colonies throughout the solar system when he learned something that changed the entire war. The colonies that the Valdorians thought they had destroyed were still alive. "Mike, this is incredible," came a transmission from the Mars colony. "We've been hiding in the underground tunnels, but we've been building weapons too. We're ready to fight." Similar messages came from the moon bases, from the asteroid mining stations, from the research outpost near Jupiter. The Valdorians thought they had cut off Earth from its colonies, but the colonies had been preparing for war too. "All colonial forces, this is General Stevens," Mike broadcast. "Time to show these aliens that humans don't give up easily." Space stations that the enemy thought were destroyed suddenly came back to life, firing weapons they had kept hidden. Mining ships that had been playing dead began attacking enemy supply lines. Research vessels revealed that they were actually disguised warships. Fleet Commander Zarthek watched his tactical displays with growing horror. The human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. Every ship his forces destroyed seemed to be replaced by two more. Every victory led to a bigger defeat. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors," his communications officer said nervously. "The humans are attacking our supply lines. They're hitting our damaged ships. They're even boarding our vessels and stealing our technology." Zarthek had never seen anything like this in 3 centuries of conquest. Most species fought to defend their homes and then surrendered when the cost became too high. These humans were different. They seemed to get more dangerous the more they were hurt. Captain Anna Ford led a strike force of captured Valdorian ships against the enemy fleet's rear guard. Her vessels looked like enemy ships from a distance, which let them get close before attacking. "All ships, this is Ford." Anna radioed to her mixed fleet of human and captured alien vessels. "Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to make them afraid to fight the next one." Anna's ships struck like wolves, hitting enemy vessels that thought they were safe and then disappearing back into the darkness of space. The psychological effect was devastating. Valdorian crews began to fear that any ship approaching them might be humans in disguise. As the 3rd day of battle ended, both sides were exhausted. But something fundamental had changed. The Valdorians had come to destroy humanity quickly and completely. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every defeat and grew stronger from every loss. In his command center deep beneath Earth, Dr. Brooks looked at the reports from the day's fighting. Humanity had lost over 100 ships, but they had captured alien technology that would change the war. "Karen, how long before we can build ships using their engine technology?" he asked. "Give me 48 hours, she replied. "We can have prototypes ready for testing." Nathan smiled grimly. The Valdorians thought they were fighting a primitive species with inferior technology. Tomorrow, they would learn how quickly humans could adapt. Dr. Nathan Brooks stood in his laboratory, looking at the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created. It wasn't a bomb or a gun, it was Earth itself. "Karen, are you absolutely sure this will work?" he asked Dr. Price. Karen checked her calculations one more time. They had turned the entire planet into a massive gravity weapon using alien technology they had captured. If it worked, they could crush enemy ships like insects. If it failed, they might destroy their own world. "The math checks out, Nathan, but we've never tested anything this big before." Above them, the battle for Earth's survival continued. Captain Joe White commanded the orbital defense platforms that ringed the planet. His weapons were powered by Earth's rotation, turning the planet's spin into destructive energy. "All platforms, this is White," Joe radioed to his crews. "Target the enemy dreadnoughts. Let's show them what happens when you mess with our home." The orbital platforms fired beams of concentrated energy that could cut through the armor of Valdorian capital ships. The enemy had never seen weapons that drew power from an entire planet. A Valdorian super battleship that had been bombarding Earth cities suddenly found itself under attack from 6 different directions. The energy beams sliced through its hull like knives through paper. Within minutes, the massive ship was drifting debris. Commander Lisa Howard was leading a squadron of captured enemy vessels when she received the strangest order of the war. Command wanted her to attack the Valdorian fleet using their own ships against them. "You heard right, Lisa," came Admiral Grant's voice over the radio. "Use their weapons, their tactics, everything. Make them fight their own technology." Lisa looked at her crew. They were humans, but they were flying a Valdorian battleship. Dr. Brooks's team had figured out how to operate the alien technology in ways that even its builders hadn't imagined. "All right, people," Lisa announced to her crew. "Let's show these aliens how humans use their toys." Lisa's captured ship approached a group of enemy vessels that assumed it was friendly. The Valdorians never suspected that humans could learn to operate their technology so quickly. At point-blank range, Lisa opened fire. But instead of using normal Valdorian tactics, she pushed the alien weapons beyond their safe limits. The energy beams that emerged were twice as powerful as anything the enemy had seen before. 3 Valdorian cruisers died before they realized they were under attack by their own ship. Admiral Lisa Grant was coordinating the overall battle when Dr. Brooks contacted her with incredible news. "Lisa, we're ready to activate the Phoenix Protocol." Nathan's voice crackled over the radio. Lisa had been waiting for this moment. Phoenix was humanity's ultimate deception. For months they had been pretending that their hidden fleets were just rumors. Now it was time to reveal the truth. "All ghost fleets, this is Admiral Grant." Lisa broadcast on a frequency that reached across the solar system. "Phoenix Protocol is active. Time to come home." What happened next shocked even the human crews who had been preparing for it. Ships emerged from hiding places that the Valdorians didn't know existed. They came from inside Jupiter's storms, from the ice fields of Saturn, from the dark side of distant moons. But these weren't the same ships that had fled at the beginning of the war. Dr. Brooks's teams had been working on them for days, upgrading them with captured alien technology. Captain Tim Brown commanded one of the Ghost Fleet vessels. His ship looked human on the outside, but inside it was a hybrid of human and Valdorian technology. It was faster, stronger, and deadlier than anything either species had built before. "Ghost Fleet is in position," Tim radioed, ready to show these bastards what humans can do with their technology. Tim's fleet struck the Valdorian rearguard like a hammer. The enemy ships couldn't understand what they were seeing. These vessels moved like Valdorian ships but fought like humans, wild, unpredictable, and utterly ruthless. Dr. Karen Price activated the final component of humanity's defense network. For months, human ships had been seeding space around Earth with microscopic robots. Now those robots came together to form clouds of smart metal that could reshape themselves into any weapon needed. The robot clouds engulfed Valdorian fighters, turning into nets that crushed the small ships. They flowed around enemy battleships, becoming acid that ate through armor. They even formed into mirrors that reflected the Valdorians' own energy weapons back at them. Fleet Commander Zarthek watched his forces being destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. The humans were using technology that his Empire's scientists had declared impossible. "Sir, we're taking massive casualties," his tactical officer reported. "The humans seem to have unlimited numbers of ships." Zarthek looked at his displays with growing fear. His fleet had lost over half its ships while the human resistance seemed to be growing stronger every hour. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human commander," his communications officer announced. Admiral Grant's face appeared on Zarthek's screen. She looked tired but determined. "Commander Zarthek, my name is Admiral Lisa Grant of the Human Defense Force. I have a message for you." Zarthek straightened in his command chair. "Speak, human." "You came here to destroy us," Lisa continued. "Instead, you've taught us how to destroy you. We have your technology now. We know where your worlds are. We've learned how to build ships that are better than yours." Zarthek felt ice in his veins. "What do you want?" "We want you to leave," Lisa said simply. "Take what's left of your fleet and go home. Tell your empire that Earth is not for sale. And if we refuse," Lisa smiled grimly, "then we'll follow you home and show your people what you tried to do to ours." General Peter Clark was coordinating the ground assault on the Valdorian flagship when he received word that the enemy commander was ready to negotiate. But Peter had other plans. "Negative, command," Peter radioed back. "We're not negotiating. We're winning." Peter's assault troops had boarded the enemy flagship using captured Valdorian transport ships. The alien crew fought desperately, but they had never faced human soldiers who treated boarding actions like a form of entertainment. Captain Kelly James led her squad through the enemy ship's corridors, hunting alien officers. The Valdorians had weapons that could punch through steel, but Kelly's team had learned to fight in conditions that would kill normal soldiers. They advanced through rooms with no air, past gravity fields that could crush bones, around energy barriers that could stop a tank. The Valdorians discovered that humans could weaponize their own bodies, turning blood loss into a tactical advantage and using pain as motivation rather than limitation. When Kelly's team reached the enemy bridge, They found Fleet Commander Zarthek surrounded by his staff officers. The alien commander was huge, almost twice Kelly's size, and armed with weapons that could cut a human in half. "Surrender," Kelly ordered. Pointing her weapon at the alien's head, Zarthek looked around his bridge. His ship was crippled, his fleet was destroyed. And these impossible humans had done something no species had ever accomplished. They had boarded his flagship and lived to tell about it. "I surrender," Zarthek said quietly. Dr. Brooks received the news in his underground laboratory. The enemy commander had been captured, his fleet was in retreat, and humanity had captured enough alien technology to revolutionize their entire civilization. But Nathan wasn't finished. The Valdorians had come to commit genocide against the human race. They needed to understand the consequences of that decision. "Karen, activate the final phase of Phoenix Protocol," Nathan ordered. "Nathan, are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." Nathan looked at the reports of destroyed human cities, of families killed in the orbital bombardments, of children who would never see their parents again. They chose this war, Karen. Now they get to see what humans do to species that try to exterminate us. Across the solar system, weapons that had been hidden for months began to target not just the retreating enemy fleet, but the coordinates of Valdorian worlds that they had captured from enemy computers. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth's children would not be the victims in this war. Anyone who tried to destroy humanity would find themselves facing the consequences at their own front door. The Valdorian Empire had come to erase Earth from existence. Instead, they had awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Captain Kelly James stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, humanity's first interstellar warship. Built from melted Valdorian hull metal and powered by captured alien engines, it was faster and more deadly than anything the enemy had ever imagined. 3 months had passed since the battle for Earth. The Valdorian fleet had been destroyed, but humanity wasn't finished. They were taking the war to the enemy's home territory. "Captain, we're approaching the Valdorian mining colony on Zerion Prime," reported her navigation officer. Kelly looked at the tactical display. The enemy colony had a small defense fleet, 12 ships that thought they were safe because no human vessel should be able to reach them. "All weapons, target their military installations only," Kelly ordered. "Remember, we're not here to hurt civilians. We're here to send a message." The Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the enemy fleet. The Valdorian ships opened fire immediately, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the hybrid human-alien shields that Dr. Brooks had designed. Kelly's return fire was devastating. Human weapons powered by Valdorian technology tore through the enemy ships like they were made of paper. Within minutes, the entire defense fleet was drifting debris, but Kelly wasn't finished. She activated a communication system that would broadcast to every world in the sector. "Attention, Valdorian Empire," Kelly announced. "This is Captain Kelly James of the Human Defense Force. 3 months ago, you sent a fleet to exterminate my species. Today, you learn the consequences of that decision." On Earth, President Henry Cole stood before the rebuilt United Nations building. The Valdorian bombardment had damaged many cities, but humanity had used alien technology to rebuild them better than before. "My fellow humans," President Cole began his address. 6 months ago, we faced extinction. Today we stand as the newest power in the galaxy. But we did not win this war to become conquerors. We won it to ensure that no species will ever again threaten the existence of another. In the audience sat representatives from dozens of alien species. Word of humanity's victory over the Valdorians had spread across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were beginning to rebel against their oppressors. Dr. Nathan Brooks and Dr. Karen Price were working in their laboratory when they received a visitor that surprised them. Fleet Commander Zarthek, the former Valdorian leader, had been studying human technology as part of his surrender agreement. "Dr. Brooks," Zarthek said in his broken English, "I need to understand something. How did your species learn our technology so quickly?" Nathan looked at the alien commander who had once planned to exterminate humanity. "Because we had to, Commander. When someone tries to kill your children, you learn to use any weapon you can find." Zarthek nodded slowly. "In 300 years of conquest, I never faced an enemy like humans. You don't fight to win territory or resources. You fight for the right to exist." "That's correct," Karen added. and anyone who threatens that right learns what 8 billion angry humans can accomplish when they work together. Admiral Lisa Grant was reviewing reports from across the galaxy when she received news that changed everything. The Valdorian High Command was requesting a formal peace treaty. "Admiral," came the transmission from the enemy capital, "the Valdorian Empire wishes to negotiate an end to hostilities. We are prepared to offer significant concessions." Lisa looked at her staff officers. They had all lost friends and family in the war. The idea of making peace with the species that had tried to exterminate them was difficult. But Lisa remembered something President Cole had said. "We fight not to become monsters, but to prevent monsters from destroying others." "Very well," Lisa replied to the Valdorian transmission. "We'll negotiate, but understand this. Any peace treaty must guarantee the safety of all species. The age of galactic empires built on slavery and conquest is over." Captain Greg Adams commanded the patrol ship Guardian as it moved through the outer regions of human space. His job was to protect the new colonies that humanity was establishing on worlds abandoned by the retreating Valdorians. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," his communications officer reported. "It's coming from a civilian transport. They're under attack by Valdorian pirates." Greg smiled grimly. Some enemy forces had refused to accept the peace treaty and had turned to piracy. They were about to learn that attacking anyone under human protection was a deadly mistake. The Guardian dropped out of faster than light, traveled to find 3 Valdorian raiders attacking a cargo ship full of refugees from the war. The pirates had been expecting an easy target. Instead, they found themselves facing a human warship equipped with technology that their own empire had never developed. Greg's weapons tore through their ships before they could react. "This is Captain Adams of the Human Defense Force," Greg broadcast to the surviving pirates. "You have attacked civilians under our protection. Surrender now or join your friends in death." The pirates chose to run, but human ships were faster now. Greg's vessel caught them before they could escape and disabled their engines with surgical precision. Dr. Brooks was working on humanity's most ambitious project yet when he received an unexpected visitor. An alien scientist from a species that had been enslaved by the Valdorians for 800 years. "Dr. Brooks," the alien said, "my people have heard of your victory. We wish to learn from you. How do we fight for our freedom?" Nathan looked at the creature, small, peaceful, obviously not built for war. But he recognized something in its eyes that he had seen in human faces during the darkest days of the invasion. The determination to survive. "The first lesson," Nathan replied, "is that freedom isn't given. It's taken. The second lesson is that any species willing to fight for its right to exist can find ways to win." Nathan began sharing human military technology with the freed species. Not weapons of conquest, but weapons of liberation. Tools that could be used to break the chains of slavery and ensure that no empire could ever again treat entire civilizations as property. "Captain," Mary Lewis commanded the negotiating team that met with Valdorian representatives on the neutral world of Haven Prime. The enemy delegation was led by High Commander Veltar, the highest-ranking Valdorian military officer to survive the war. "Commander Lewis," Veltar began, "the Valdorian Empire acknowledges defeat. We are prepared to accept human terms for peace." Mary looked at the alien commander. 6 months ago, his species had been preparing to commit genocide. Now they were begging for mercy. "The terms are simple," Mary replied. "All enslaved species are to be freed immediately. All conquered territories are to be granted independence. The Valdorian military is to be reduced to defensive forces only. And most importantly, the Empire will pay reparations for the damage caused by centuries of conquest." Veltar's alien features showed his distress. "These terms will destroy our civilization." "Your civilization was built on the suffering of others," Mary replied coldly. "Perhaps it's time to build a new one based on cooperation instead of conquest." President Cole was addressing the Galactic Assembly when he announced humanity's most important decision. The Assembly was a new organization that included representatives from every free species in the galaxy. "Fellow beings," President Cole said, "humanity has learned that peace cannot be maintained by the strong conquering the weak. True peace comes when all species respect each other's right to exist and prosper." He announced the formation of the Galactic Protection Fleet, a joint military force commanded by humans but crewed by volunteers from every member species. Its mission was simple: prevent any species from ever again attempting to exterminate another. Captain Sam Parker stood on the observation deck of the patrol ship Eternal Vigilance, watching the stars at the edge of human space. His ship was built from Valdorian technology enhanced by human innovation, and it was faster and more powerful than anything the old Empire had ever imagined. "Captain," his sensor officer reported, "long-range scanners are picking up an unknown fleet approaching from outside the galaxy." Sam looked at the display. The ships were unlike anything in their databases, sleek, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Send a message to Earth Command," Sam ordered. "Tell them we may have new visitors, and remind them that humanity didn't survive the Valdorians just to be conquered by someone else." As Sam's ship moved to intercept the unknown fleet, he thought about how much had changed in 1 year. Humanity had gone from a species facing extinction to the protectors of galactic peace. But Sam knew that the galaxy was a big place, full of dangers that hadn't been discovered yet. There would always be new threats, new enemies who thought they could prey on the weak. They would learn, as the Valdorians had learned, that some species refuse to be victims. Some species fight back, and some species, when pushed to the edge of extinction, discover that they are capable of things that reshape the entire galaxy. The message Earth had sent to the stars was simple: leave peaceful species alone, or face the consequences. It was a message written in the wreckage of the Valdorian fleet, spoken in the language of liberated worlds, and guaranteed by human ships that patrolled the darkness between the stars. Humanity had answered the Empire's fire with fire of their own. Now they stood guard to ensure that no other species would ever have to make the